And we are live. Welcome to Impact Money, Money in the Morning here on the Smart Money Culture TV network, as well as streaming around the world on X and on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all these other wonderful platforms. I'm here with my brother, Sir David Porter. How are you, David?
Yes, doing well, pretty well. Man, I got crushed in the markets. It's hard to be a permanent bull, on the Bitcoin. You always think it's going up, and who wants to short? I know you make money when it's short, but I like to see it go long. And so it was a rough day for me personally on the trading market, but everything is okay. We're still above $60,000 a Bitcoin. And if you take a look at the fear and greed index, it's finally in a reasonable place. I always like to look at the fear and greed index and get in when it's not so greedy, and get in when it's a little bit more on the fearful side. So I'm looking to reaccumulate and find a great entry point, and
Well,
we'll
it's
take
a
a
yeah, I mean, crazy stuff that we have going on right now. Of course, there's jets in the air. They've left from the UK and they've left from Israel. So that, of course, is I think going to cause the markets to continue to bleed down. We have, what's going on over there. Nobody. I mean, I don't know. I guess some people like it, but it's pretty bad. It looks like these guys are going to tit for tat until World War III completely breaks out. We have, according to Donald Trump, over 1 million dead over in Eastern Europe. And with the weapons that we use nowadays, that could easily be the case over in the Middle East as well. So everybody needs to, as I said yesterday, just take a step back and chill out. Okay, guys? Chill out. It's funny to me, of course, because not funny, but they're like, we're gonna respond, we're gonna respond, we're gonna respond, and it's like, okay, guys, well, somebody's got to stop. Somebody's got to be the big boy here. It's funny, I think, to look at it and see Iran looking like they have the cooler head, looking like they're the big boy in the matter. That nobody's used to seeing that, but. These markets, I think, are going to continue to melt down for a bit. We'll see. I mean, they're looking like, of course, they're consolidating now. But if war continues, then that, of course, affects the market. Oil's down, silver's down. Actually, gold is kind of the bright one of the day. Gold is up slightly. And then we'll see these bombers that are over in the air. It'll be interesting to see if that is, just like propaganda stuff being put out there, or if we're going to see some major attacks here. There's talk of them going after the Iran's nuclear sites, so that would be indeed. Those are deep inside Iran, and that would be a big time escalation. So. Interesting show we have ahead. Of course, we'll have Matt Dixon on as well, as we, and he's going to talk about the markets and the charts and what the charts are telling us. I can tell you that the stock markets, the Asian stock markets, are red. These ones they are all red. I'm just going to pull that up here. This is one of my favorite links to use. The Asian markets, I mean, just look at this, just red across the board. Usually we have something in there. You have some bright light in there, but you don't have anything now. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange, of course, that psychological level there is 15,000, I believe. I think it's 15,000. That a few times. And down 2% today. It was down over, I think it was around 2% yesterday, 245 and 248. And that's with all of the massive money that's been printed, the massive amount of money that's been printed out of China and all the countries of the world When the dollar is strengthening, everyone else is printing even more money. Taiwan down 2.5%. You have the Shenzhen down over 2%. Everything's down. Dollar is up, edging up. I'll check out the DXY. Of course, Matt will talk more about that. Oil is down again slightly. Sticky above 85, as we've been talking about. 85, sticky above 80, I would say is actually what I wanted to say. So keeping an eye on that. What that means, of course, is a number of things, but one of the things is that the demand is not high. Now we are going into the summer season, and in the summer season, you have more people are driving, and more gas is used because people are traveling, people are driving, they're going to different places, they're using gas, they're using oil. So we'll keep an eye on that. That, of course, has a direct effect on inflation. One of the things that we see right now, and it's been, even just to be totally clear, of course, I'm back in the U.S. now for days, right? I came back Saturday morning. Still jet lagged a bit, to be honest, but I'm getting used to that stuff. But it is hard for me to even focus on right now on the political situation because it's just so crazy. It's so crazy right now. And of course, now after these tit for tats over in the Middle East, it looked like they're going to continue. Now they're going to, the big push is to pass these bills that are really pillaging, plundering you. I'm sure you all just paid your taxes, so you're upset. You should be upset about that. Taxes are illegal. They're not supposed to. You're not supposed to have to pay taxes. But if you don't pay them, they'll put you in jail. But you're free. So what's going on right now is they're pushing to fund the Israel bill and fund the Ukraine bill, and I think they throw some money in there for Taiwan just to make sure that we make China mad at us too. But it's over $100 billion, and that, I've broken that down before. You can do that either by, you can take it either by household or by person. Okay. And when they pass 100, there's 113 million households in the U.S., not houses, not single family homes, whatever, but households. Okay. And if you pass $113 billion bill, each house has to pay $1,000 basically. Okay. And if there's 313 or 330 million Americans, and that includes kids and everything else. And so if you wanted to do the math like that, every single American, as I like to call us in France, Americans, that costs about $300 bucks, let's say, about $300 for each American. So if you have 2 kids and a wife, and that bill's that's $1,200 from you after you already just paid your taxes. $1,200 more from you to send over to Ukraine and to Iran, 2 wars that you probably don't support. Here's the thing, guys. If we pull the funding, the wars will stop. The reason people aren't negotiating is because they don't have to. Everybody's making too much money. They don't have to negotiate. So if you're putting a deal together and you're about to make $20 million on a deal, and these are real numbers, you're going to help put together some big arms deal. Okay, maybe you're going to make more. Maybe you're going to make $50 million. Maybe you're going to make $500,000 off the deal. Okay, and you want that deal to go through. And it's easy not to think about how those bombs are going to kill people. And here's the other part I don't like about this war in particular is there's supposed to be rules to these things. Okay, even war has rules, and that even war has rules. International relations have rules. Wars have rules. You're not just supposed to go bomb women and children. That's illegal even in war. You don't go bomb women and children. If you want to do a police operation, then you do a police operation. And they what they do is they'd say, okay, well, we're going to classify these people as terrorists, and now they don't count or something like that. I don't know, and I don't know how they classify the women and kids as terrorists. But if you need to do a police operation, then you do a police operation, and you go in and you get the people out. If you're going to do a military operation, then you do a military operation, and that's military, and that means that you are fighting military. You're just not bombing women and kids. Anyway, so markets, I think, will continue. We'll see. I think hopefully Matt will have some bright sides for us in the markets. It should actually, it's right now when you think, oh my gosh, it's going to keep going down when it usually springs back up. So we'll see. Hopefully, what these extenuating forces calm down a bit and people chill out. I will say this. It's when, because now they're going to pass these bills. They're going to push these bills through. Okay. So when these bills pass, that is going to act as stimulus into the economy 100%. That's the way it works. A lot of that money will end up in risk assets, and that should pump the market a bit. Doesn't help the average person so much, but you don't really have to be extraordinarily wealthy to get involved in these things. I mean, stocks are even, I would say, harder to buy than crypto. You can really just make up a Coinbase account, or you can make up an account on some of these other exchanges that are open and go buy some crypto. So it's pretty easy to buy. It is very high risk. We're not financial advisors. This stuff, they say hodl, and it means hold on for dear life. And once you've hodled, once you've held some crypto, you know what they mean, because it's a ride. You can go way up and you can go way down. And that's the way it works. But you don't have to be ultra wealthy in order to get involved. But I'll tell you this, you will probably never end up ultra wealthy or wealthy, period, if you don't get involved. Because the way they're printing out the money, for the central bank is printing out the money, and all the world is doing it, and they're just fleecing you every time they do this. Every time they pass a bill, all the money that they're taking in yesterday and over the next little bit for your income taxes is way overspent. That money is spent a long time ago. So every time they do one of these bills, they're taking it from you from inflation. Let's bring on the great Matt Dixon. Let's talk about some of the markets here. I'm sure he has a great show lined up. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Hi. Good morning, David. Morning, Bruce. It's looking a bit dark here, isn't it? And I've got the light, but Dubai is actually, this is the heat of the day normally. It's absolutely grey, clouded over.
Wow. Well, they're probably trying to keep it cooler, right?
Yeah, but this is supposed to be the worst thunderstorm and rains in 23 years.
Oh my gosh. Are you serious? Because I know David was there.
It's conference season, and it's a good job he didn't come, because everybody's flooded in, can't move.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I saw the weather report. It's going to rain the next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it's supposed to continue, throughout tonight, tomorrow. So it's raining and thunder and lightning all night long. Torrential, like tropical rain. It's
crazy. And it's still hot as Dickens, huh?
It's still, well, I've not even been out actually, but I understand. It's always hot. Yeah. It's interesting, just sort of touching on a couple of things. You're talking about oil prices. So actually, I'll just show you the oil chart. Let me just share my screen as usual. Won't take a moment. There we go. Hopefully you'll be able to see the oil chart.
Yes.
Good. So you can actually see from here where I'll just put a vertical line in there so you can see where I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
From about this sort of time here, we can see the oil price. So that line there was the beginning of the year. So the first quarter of 2024, the oil production cuts. So they're cutting oil production by 2.2 million barrels a day. This is talking about OPEC countries in the main. And that's why we saw this little tick higher, really, in the oil price. And there may have been some sort of contribution from geopolitical tensions, but at the moment, there's been no real disruption to the oil supply from the Middle East.
Even there's the pipeline through Turkey going to Israel, and that has continued to run. I mean, this is big money here, big business, and war or no war, they're keeping that oil going.
Yeah, I mean, they'll do all they can, I assume, to keep these pipelines open because, I mean, the international community really do not want the oil prices to escalate and add further fuel to the fire, as it were, in terms of inflation. So the international community don't want that. The cuts that they agreed, 2.2 million barrels a day from OPEC in the first quarter, they actually probably not even been implementing those cuts. There were promises, but it seems they're not being implemented. So that's why oil price has not really risen much. There's been a little bit of a rise, but it's not risen that much so far. And the lack of geopolitical tension. And that brings us, I suppose, to what the potential responses are, retaliation potentially from Israel now on this Iranian drone attack. So I understand they're initially going to go straight back. They'd already prepared plans and they're going to attack Iran immediately. And obviously there's a lot of diplomacy took over with Biden and whoever phoning Netanyahu and Israel, trying to pour oil on troubled waters. All these.
I don't know if that's a saying or not, but maybe that fits.
It is a saying. You pour oil on troubled waters, it's supposed to still the waters, calm the waters, and that's basically what's supposedly happening right now.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think they told him in no uncertain terms that if he wanted the bills to get past Congress, he should wait. So I don't think there's much more of it other than that. But I mean, we'll see. There's jets in the air. But yeah, there's a lot of diplomacy going on there. That's for sure.
I mean, I think they're being persuaded that it was actually a win because
Iran was. I mean,
Iran targeted 300 missiles, was it? Something like over 300.
It was like crazy, and like nothing happened. Nothing happened. It was a win.
Not a single Israeli death,
right?
You know, from those missiles. Well, say strikes. They weren't strikes. More than 99% of them were intercepted by this Iron Dome, isn't it? That Israel have their defense mechanism. But also, even Jordan actually shot down a load of missiles coming over towards Israel. So Jordan were actually protecting Israel as well.
Yep.
So I think it's been positioned. They're trying to position it. This was a big win for Israel that Iran fired all these missiles. Interesting thing was that it wasn't totally coordinated. So it does make you think that there's probably more to come later on because Hezbollah in Lebanon didn't get involved in this, and they could have let loose all of their arsenal of missiles and so on as well. This could have been a concerted effort from all the Iranian proxies, but it wasn't. And so it does tell you this was really just some kind of show of force, but it wasn't really.
Well, I think that they had to respond. I mean, their embassies were bombed. How could they not respond? So they responded. I think that probably they thought that. I think they knew that those missiles weren't going to get through. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, this Iron Dome is like crazy. I mean, they're like shooting stuff out of the sky with lasers. You know what I mean? Now it could have been a stress test as well. It could have been served as two different types of things. But I mean, they had to respond. They bombed their embassies. I mean, that's against every international law there is.
And again, it's whether did they. The reasoning behind bombing this embassy, did Israel actually want to sort of stir the hornet's nest and get some kind of response?
Yeah.
Because you'd wonder why they did it, because as you say, it's a very high risk thing to do. It would cause escalation almost undoubtedly.
Yeah.
And I know they targeted, it wasn't the actual embassy itself, it was a annex opposite or next adjacent to the embassy. Where they targeted a meeting going on between some senior Iranian army people and Palestinian Hamas or whatever. So they were targeting that. So whether they were just targeting that, whether they didn't realize, I mean, you'd thought Israel would realize the potential for escalation here, and you'd assume they probably don't want that escalation. Although, as you say, they've got this Iron Dome in place. Maybe they feel ready for it.
Well, also, just like I mentioned earlier on in the show, they are, now they're getting their funding bill passed. those bills are going to pass, and it's a dirty business, man. I talked about it when the first October 7th attack happened quite a bit because I was at the largest military trade show here in the U.S. I just happened to be there, and Israel had the largest. Basically, they had rented a third of the trade show, and you and I have done enough trade shows to understand how much money that is. They were totally set up, and it just looked so like they knew it was going to happen, and they were all ready to sell. I mean, I don't know if that's how it happened or not, or if it was just coincidence. But when you're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars, and people that are people are killed all the time. You know what I mean? So those types of things play into it. Of course, they need it. They want that money. They want that. It's like money. It's billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah, money's behind everything. Just look on the right-hand side here, the negatives. These are the performances today of all these assets. The only one asset in positive territory is the US dollar, DXY. Yeah. Everything else is heavily negative. And that shows you that in times of trouble, even gold, by the way, is down 0.5%. And it's quite interesting. If you look at gold, yes, it is a safe haven store of value. But in times of trouble, even gold falls because everybody is looking for liquidity.
Yep.
Everyone's desperate for liquidity. So even gold, like in the 2008 financial crisis, gold fell 30%. Now, you might wonder why if it's a safe haven, but people are desperate for cash and they'll cash out of absolutely anything. Obviously, over the weekend, they could only cash out of crypto, really. They were the only markets open. That's why crypto took such a deep dive. But clearly, there's a lot of anticipation and nervousness ahead of what response there might be from Israel. So they could potentially, I mean, let's just briefly look at the options. They could potentially attack oil facilities because Iran is still one of the biggest oil producers. Even though they've got sanctions, they still produce a lot of oil. And if they were hit, then that would affect. So I think that's probably not on the table. That'll be taken off the table because the international community will not want to see oil prices spike higher for the reasons I just said. They're worried enough as it is about inflation. They don't want to see oil prices through the roof. So I think that particular option is probably off the table. They can potentially strike military targets. That's a possibility. They can potentially strike proxies, which are the likes of Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, whatever. They could strike targets there. Or they could potentially strike nuclear facilities because they are very worried. I think the world is worried, not just Israel, about Iran's growing nuclear capability. I understand they have enough fissile material, uranium, to basically build 3 bombs at the moment. So they use these fast breeder reactors to try and produce more of the fissile uranium, and they've now got enough for 3 bombs. So Israel may well want to, and they have in the past bombed facilities. So they may well be the target for Israel. So again, it's just whether it's seen as an escalation or whether hopefully things will calm down. We'll just have to see. But they're the various options on the table. And at the moment, they're all a possibility. And that's why we're seeing such negativity in the markets. I mean, if we're just flipping through, we'll look at a couple of the charts. But Bitcoin, is down 2.33% right now at 61.9. So still falling, and like gold, Bitcoin is a safe haven store of value, but they're stores of value really against inflation, not against these geopolitical troubles where everybody wants cash, and right. That's what they're desperate for. So, and as I say, even with the arms thing, that's why Israel may be showing some restraint because of the wanting to get these bills through America to fund their arms deals and so on.
Yep. Hunter, I mean, it's clear as day to me here. So that'll take probably a week to pass, and then we'll see some more high-end aggression. Hopefully, I don't know, whatever. These people need to calm down. All right, the U.S. dollar, yeah.
Here's the US dollar, yeah. So we actually had this line drawn in a long time ago, and I remember we were playing around this line, just saying what would happen normally is if it were to break above, it will retest the trend line, which is exactly what it did. We got this push above, then a red candle down to retest the trend line, then price takes off again. That's really very, very typical movement when you break a trend line, if it's going to break through. The next target will be, to the upside, will be 106, 106.60, somewhere around there. we're not a long way off that now. So that would be the next target. That's 100% of this move here, transposed to here. So this measurement here, this Fibonacci measurement, I measured from the bottom to the top of this wave here. Then just transpose it to the bottom of that wave, and that's the target there. So we're near to it. So that's a potential turning point. But if things do kick off in the Middle East, you can be reasonably confident they'll go higher. And my immediate target is the 1.618, which is that golden ratio, which is so often seen in so many things, but particularly in finance and charting and so on. And that would be 109. And that would probably be, if we break through this 100% here, that would be the next stop probably for the US dollar, 109. So that'd be quite a bit higher and would probably see more downside on risk assets. So there's definitely a couple of possibilities here on the risk assets. So we'll look at Bitcoin here, and I'll probably just open it out. Maybe I'll put it onto the daily just to show it a bit more clearly. So we can see the all-time high here on Bitcoin. That's just at this point here was 73.6, somewhere around there. Let's just find the exact number. 73.709 was the all-time high. And we had some kind of choppy move down, sideways, down again. So at the moment, potentially, this is just a correction. But you can see we've got a bearish engulfing candlestick here. It actually engulfed the green candle before it, and then we got a further red candle to follow. So at the moment, it's looking as though we probably have, most probably have some more downside to come. But potentially, if this is just A, B, C, that is a corrective move, and then we get in line with this arrow, a push to new highs again, higher up. But we need to see this confirmed as an ABC. But it's looking at the moment reasonably promising. I think just short term we'll get some downside. Hopefully the response from Israel won't be anything too bad, or maybe just a small knee-jerk reaction, and then markets will hopefully look to recover. So there's definitely two sides. Charts never tell you the whole picture. They tell you the possibilities, and we have to determine the probabilities of the various possibilities. And then we take our positions using risk reward, with stop losses and trying to work out what the potential reward is for the amount of risk you're taking. So that would be the way of trading. But at the moment, looking as though we're pushing slightly downwards. Ethereum as well. Very, very similar. We had quite a clear what seems to be A, B, C down, and potentially that could be all over, and we could be pushing fairly soon to new all-time highs if we get some clear resolution. But what I have seen with some assets is that we had a triangle formation. I'll just see if I can see that. Probably I can see that actually with Litecoin is probably the best one. And we've looked at this. We charted this a long time ago, saying that this triangle here was potentially an X wave. Now, the Y wave itself can be made up of an ABC higher, or it could be complete ABC to complete the Y wave. So I'm just giving the other possibilities because we must give the two potential possibilities here. And it's looking a bit negative right now that if this is a WXY higher, that means it's a correction higher, meaning the next impulsive direction will be to the downside. And if that's the case, the move down is wave one, then move up in wave two. We're working on wave three down, which will take us below this point. So this is actually going to be quite a key level here if we break below the start of this move up. So we really do need to probably sit on the fence, keep our powder dry, protect your positions. If you're already in profit, protect them, but be very careful because there's massive potential for an upset here with what's going on in the Middle East. We see Russia, Ukraine is a little bit quiet at the moment, but they are doing a lot of recruiting. And I think there's some recent change in the bombing strategy of Russia against Ukraine recently. So again, there's all sorts of things out there. These are times you can either take a gamble and hope it all plays out really well, but in general, I'd say these are times to be cautious. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. You normally try to go with the trend. Right now, the trend is actually looking as though it could have turned to the downside. So let's look at Bitcoin and just see where we are. If I look on the daily chart, we can see quite a bit of downward movement. And if we push to new lows below this level, we actually then have 5 waves down. Potentially we are seeing, if I go into the weekly, I think it's actually a lot clearer, to be honest. I move that out of the way. This is a little bit scary on the weekly. So again, we had an all-time high here, and let's hope it's just an ABC and then we push to new all-time highs. But we see these three very bearish candlesticks here, and that's potentially a little bit concerning that this could continue, that potentially we had a trend change. It's just a possibility, not definite, but we just need to be aware this could have been a trend change up here. And there's a lot of positive news out at the moment. So we've got the ETF approvals in Hong Kong now, haven't we? With
Yes,
Bitcoin and Ethereum.
and
ETF.
they're paying out. They're offering to pay out in Bitcoin, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, amazing. So
yeah,
the thing is, we're not going to see the same volumes as the other ETFs that we've already seen out of America. Probably not going to see the same volume, so it'll have less of an impact. But it's it's good news. And let's just hope this is just a bit of a correction, an ABC correction, if that's the case. And if we do see then an impulse higher from the end of a C wave, wherever it is, if we see an impulse, which would be on a smaller time scale, maybe even a 4-hour time scale, and we see 5 waves to the upside and a bit of a pullback, that would be the time to jump in. So right now, it's not, because there's complete uncertainty whether we're going lower or higher. I would wait for confirmation that we see, if we see a turn to the upside, we need to see on a shorter time frame 5 clear waves and 3 back, and that's the time to jump in and potentially take advantage of a move. Even now, we've got XRP again. That was, see again, potentially, as I say, I put an area. In fact, I think I wanted to jump back to Litecoin because I did have that. I don't know whether I mentioned this yesterday, but the potential stop losses that you would have are exactly, you place your stop losses in this region. You would have placed them at the bottom of this wave here. This is before the price dipped down. So if you were here, somewhere here, when the price was up here, your stop loss would have been placed at this previous spike low, or it could even be placed at this previous spike low. So all of this market stop losses, nearly all of them, probably 90% of stop losses, would have been placed within this region here, this band of price here. And we can see that prices spiked just below that band. So it would have taken out all of the stop losses that were there. So everybody who was long in the market, they bought long and they had a stop loss just in case price dipped down. All of those stop losses would have been collected. So it cleaned out all of the longs from the market. So that would tell me, and trying to think like the whales and the market makers, that if they took out all of the longs in the market, all of these stop losses, took out all the long positions, that would tell me they're clearing the way for a potential move higher in the market. So that is one of the clues that potentially the market could push higher soon because they've cleared out the stop losses. And that's actually happened across a few of the different assets you might want to look at, that they've taken the prices down to areas where stop losses would naturally have been placed, where you would normally place a stop loss for safety. You know, if price was up here, it's a long way down. You wouldn't expect prices to come here, but you'd use these previous price lows to place your stop losses. And that's, very, very typical market maker and whale activity. They'll push prices and they'll basically sell the market to push it down below, collect all the longs, then they jump in, pick up the market. And that's what Bruce and David are always saying, that basically, even with the management of the US economy, they'll push asset prices right down. It allows the big wealthy people to pick up assets at rock bottom prices. And then that's when they then start to escalate the price again. Everybody piles back in, pushes prices up to their advantage because they picked all the assets up at these really cheap, low prices. So that's what's happening there. The S&P 500, that again, a little bit worrying. And I did mention the other day, it was quite worrying, in fact, that again, we've seen 3 red candles here. And what is concerning is we had this long held parallel channel where price didn't break above it, didn't break below it, didn't break above it, didn't break below, didn't break above. All these occasions didn't break above. But then it clearly broke below. And again, on a shorter time frame, I'll probably just put it on a shorter time frame. If we go on daily, for example, you can see we tested below, tested back up against it, and then we pushed down again. And this is always quite worrying when you see something break a trend line, like we saw with the dollar index, where there, if you remember, it broke above this trend line, retested, and then took off. And now with the SPX, the opposite way around. It broke below the trend line, tested up, retested it, and then pushed down. And again, as I say, these are typical, they're repetitive patterns, chart patterns, that we can see them and we can draw some conclusions from them that potentially that's telling us there's been a real potential turn in the market. And if you remember back to the charts I showed, those really long-term charts of Sid Norris going back 100 years or more with the stock markets, he was saying at or near these levels, the 5,002, 5,003, 4, whatever, around those sort of levels. It wasn't precise because it's looking at really long-term predictions here. He was saying the market is potentially going to turn in a massive wave forward to the downside. So that's why we need to be aware that even if you're going in long dollar cost averaging means just putting a little bit in at each occasion, not jumping in with all your, all your spare capital. So we need to, I think it's time for caution personally. So the meme coins, they're down more than most things, but not down massively. Jupiter Exchange down 4%, Solana down 3%. Solana, be an interesting one. Once again, Solana could potentially be just an ABC down, or this could be a 1, 2, 3, 4 and pushing down the fifth wave. That means, it could still be a C wave, but I'm just saying potentially we could possibly have topped in this market. So wave 1 down, ABC 2 up, then 3 down, 4 up, and 5 down. So it may not be a wave 4 down. So I'm just saying there's two sides to every story. We can see this as potentially negative. So we really need to watch these geopolitical tensions. And then, of course, we've got the May meeting coming up for the Fed. Let's see what they have to say about interest rates. But I told you my long-term thesis was that they will not be able to not be able to drop interest rates because of inflation problems. But they really need to drop interest rates because growth will be beginning to subside. And so what they will resort to is printing more money. And when they print more money, that potentially will stoke inflation longer term. That will give the gold another push. So whilst at the moment there may be some geopolitical tensions holding gold back a little bit, if we do, or when we do, because I think it's just a matter of not if, but when we see more money printing, money will flow again into gold as the safe haven. And most probably also digital gold, Bitcoin as a safe haven as well, because that is also an amazing hedge against inflation because of the limited supply. And halving is what now? 3 days away, is it? Something like that, 3, 4 days away.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It is always this way though at the halving. It's like I thought it was gonna pump, and it's always down. I don't know, you know how it works. It's like the geopolitical or whatever it is. It's always down at the actual halving or the days leading it right into it.
Yeah, buy the rumor, sell the news, or in this case, sell the rumor, buy the news.
Yeah,
it's always, the rumor always kind of pushes prices one way, and then you get the opposite when the thing actually happens. Although I think with halving, it's so clear cut. Everybody knows virtually exactly when it's going to happen every 4 years. So I do think it's very much priced in. So yes, all the discussions everyone's had about halving, what it's going to do to price and so on, I think it's just priced in personally.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. And a couple of the others, we've looked at oil, we've looked at gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum, we've looked at, might look at some more, slightly more speculative ones like ICP, for example. You can see it's had quite a big downturn from the recent local high. Obviously, it's nowhere near the all-time highs, but this is beginning to look a little bit impulsive to the downside. So again, a little bit worrying. So if we've got some kind of wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and a fifth wave down, that would potentially be a little bit worrying because this move up here was clearly impulsive, well over the fifth wave. And in fact, we see, and I'll just draw it on here, we actually see some divergence. And this is a very important, it is even from here. So divergence from here to here. So we can see RSI, the peaks down, and we'll just draw on the corresponding price peak. So the corresponding price was from there to there. Perfect. This is what's called regular bearish divergence. This is telling you this is likely a fifth wave, that basically the big players, the whales, got out around this level, and that's what caused this three-wave pullback here. And then the retailers are pushing up, probably in a final push up here. Now, it's not always 100%, but it's just one of those indicators that you need to be aware of and keep it in your mind when you're making decisions. So if that's bearish, regular bearish divergence, it was signaling that price would come down from here, which you can see very clearly it's done that quite sharply. Right now, there's no divergence in play at all, with prices as they are, because RSI is absolutely flat across the bottom there. This is looking at the daily chart, which is quite a good time frame to look at. But as I say, the signal here was for a sell in ICP, and it's exactly what happened. And then we can see the charts, the candlestick patterns again confirmed it. And we appear now to be looking like potentially the trend changed here. So if this was a wave 5, that's the final wave in this cycle, because you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the impulsive wave. And now we're potentially have finished that push higher and potentially pushing lower now. So there are enough warning signs out there. And if we looked at fear and greed index, I've not looked at it recently, but I think the fear is beginning to become a lot more apparent. I think the readings have come right down from those extreme greed readings. So this is what we were saying in earlier shows. We had the fear and greed index. It was showing extreme greed, and that was the time to be worried. That's the time to be a bit cautious. And if you followed that mantra of, when everybody's bullish and greed is on the table, that is the time to pull back. And again, I suppose if you'd followed that, you'd have been protected against a lot of these downside movements in prices. And a strong one here, BMB is actually one of the strong ones. But again, potentially we've had an ABC high. We could be looking potentially at a wave 1 down, ABC 2 up. We could be pushing down lower. So I think, again, just to emphasize, there's a lot of warning signs out there. We need to just keep tuned to the news channels and see what's going to happen, what's going on with Israel and the surrounding. But whatever happens, I would say things will escalate, and I believe this year with Israel and the surrounding nations, no matter what happens short term, I think there's no doubt it will escalate. And there's been enough trouble, enough seeds of doubt sown right now with what's happening. That was a major escalation for Israel, as you say, to attack that consular site in Syria. And Iran said that was effectively an attack on our homeland, and that's why they attacked Israel on the homeland. So that was a major change. And as Bruce was saying, I'm not sure what you're saying about the rules of war, but that was actually one of the rules of war. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And as well, the women and children and everything else. I mean, there's rules to war. There's rules. I don't have to tell you.
Okay, well, I remember now. That's what you're talking about, the women and children. And again, that's a lot of those numbers are disputable. But this was one of the other rules of war, is that they were basically keeping things relatively calm by attacking proxies, not attacking Iran directly. I think the last attack on Iran directly was 1991. So there've been no direct attacks on Iran by Israel all that time, and the same with Iran, no direct attacks, only via proxies in Syria, Lebanon, etc., Yemen, and so on. So this became a direct attack when they attacked the consulate or the consular grounds or whatever. It just changed the rules. It broke the rules, actually. It crossed the red line.
Yes.
And that crossing that red line is what caused Iran to do this. So now, everyone waits with bated breath. What is Israel going to do about this? Because, we can't stress enough. This is potentially game-changing for us. I was looking today at the number of, just think about things in context, the number of births and deaths and in the world. And there's a lot. There's just a lot to play for here. And as Bruce so rightly says, this is life and death for people.
Yep.
We need to just weigh that, and not about who wins, who loses, but just think about peace and safety for people, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's every one of them is it's just a mess, But life is precious, and we need to always remember that, and always push for peace. War is really, they're bankers' wars. These are wars for profiteering, one way or the other. It's almost always the way war is. You have to ask anybody who's been in war, and they'll tell you the same thing. So
yeah, I mean, even you talk to soldiers. I mean, even I think it's the First World War, actually, when they're in the trenches, in France, and the British and the Germans in the trenches. And then at Christmas Day one time, they all got out and played football, and they were best mates, on Christmas Day. And that just shows there's no animosity between people. People can be friends. It's just some idiots who want to prove their power or about money or whatever in high places. But ordinary people don't want all this conflict. We can actually get on with each other very well if we choose the way of peace rather than the way of war, which only enriches a few people at the top. Why would we support that?
Exactly. So, and it's hard because the governments and everything like that, the House and they're going to pass these bills. I mean, they might have to dance for a week or two, but they're going to pass them, and it feels like there's nothing that you can do. I mean, it is, at least we have a show and we can get on and talk about it. Most people don't even have that, and they can't talk openly about it anyway because fear of losing their job or whatever.
Again, this is a bit of a conspiracy point of view, I guess, but a lot of people have been saying for a long time that they are looking for war anyway to kind of clear the decks. And when I say clear the decks, they have got things in such a mess financially with the amount of debt, which is completely unmanageable, with the amount of money printing, with the way the economy is, just being sticking plaster with all this QE, money printing and so on, and the debt. And that basically they need, like COVID was an excuse to print a load of money to cover up all their failures. It was actually covering up their financial failures. That's what it was all about. And again, it made a lot of people rich at the time. And it's the ordinary people that paid for it. This money printing is debt that's got to be paid for at the end of the day. There's interest payable on it. And
and even all those PPP loans and everything like that. I mean, there was like, the huge corporations, BlackRock and all these other ones, they got like $500 million. And then, people like myself, I didn't take any of that stuff because I didn't want to be beholden to the government. Then I didn't want them then looking at my, different companies and this and that and the other. And I just toughed it out. But in the end, they only looked at who they wanted to anyway. I mean, nobody looked at what BlackRock used it was either $500 million or $500 billion, some ungodly number, really. Anyway, it's so it was a big fleecing for sure.
Yeah, shocking stuff. Yeah, so that's again a wrap for today. Really, as I say, just finally the meme coins are down more than the rest, but not massively more. Doggy down 4.7. It's actually down quite a bit because you were talking about it around 20 cents, weren't you? It's down.
Yeah, it went over 20 cents. It is down quite a bit.
Cents now. I mean, that's down 25%. That's a big chunk.
That's a big chunk. It's interesting because it feels like it's going to go a bit lower. I guess more because of the geopolitical situation than anything else. But I don't know.
Yeah, potentially from the top, we've potentially had. Well, we could say, potentially 5 waves down. So wave 1, wave 2, working on wave 3 down. I don't think that's complete. We put a measurement on. Wave 3 would normally be a minimum 1.618 times wave 1. So if that is a wave 1, the minimum expectation for wave 3 would be here at 11 cents. So potentially, if this is, we certainly, if it's an ABC, we could have it could push higher. But if it's the beginning and then down, the next stop down on the downside will be 11 cents.
And I will say that as soon as these bills are passed, that I think will pump the market because, of course, that it always does end up in these risk assets. So, if it takes a week or two, we could be down for a bit. Or even if they know at a certain point that the bills are going to pass, then you start to see the markets pump in anticipation. They always price it in.
Yeah. Definitely there's definitely potential. As I say, there's two sides to every story, but there's real potential. This could be just a big correction down. And I was just looking at, we haven't probably got time now, but if we measured the whole Fibonacci movement from bottom to top here, we'd probably see how far that retracement got. I guess we probably haven't got time, but I'll just do it quickly if I can. Just from the very top there to the bottom about there, I think it was. Somewhere around there. Yeah, okay, so we're past the 50%. The next stop will be the 61.8%. Potentially that price is 12 cents. So somewhere around 11, 12 cents would be a reasonable potential turning point. If we're going to push higher again, that would be a potential good turning point for it. So it looks as though we've probably got one more leg down. And it's looking like that across most of the assets, even with Bitcoin. You know, as we said, even if it's just an ABC correction, we've probably still got one more leg down. So that's looking like a common theme across most of the assets right now, that potentially we do have one more leg down before we potentially push the upside. So
Yep.
I think that could be the case. Anyway, I'm getting, you probably can't hear it, but I'm getting deafened by the rain here. It's chucking it down so hard.
Wow.
That's funny. I want you to take a video out your window and so we can see, and then we'll play it tomorrow.
This is now mid-afternoon, 3 p.m. It is literally dark outside. It's dark. I can't really see anything outside. It's actually dark. All I can see is occasionally stuff is lit up by the lightning, but everything is pitch black outside, and it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon. This is shocking. I've never seen this before in Dubai.
That is something else. Well, and to let everybody know, in Dubai specifically, it's fairly well known. What they do is they don't seed the clouds kind of like we do with the lines and stuff over here, but they use electricity up in the clouds, and they will make it rain when it gets too hot. I don't know that's what's going on right now, but it's not an area that gets a lot of rain, so one would think that probably.
I mean, there's also massive gusts of winds right now. Wow, it's a serious storm.
Wow. Those buildings are built pretty nice, though. I don't know how high you are, but I'm sure you feel
they're not built for the rain, because it doesn't normally rain here, so they forgot about waterproofing the buildings. Most of them leak.
That's funny. Well, the drainage system, I know, is not the best either.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Anyway, been a pleasure to be here again today. Look forward to catching up again tomorrow.
Thank you, Matt.
Safe trading, everybody. Thanks for listening in.
You got it. Thank you. Appreciate
it.
Awesome.
Bye, Bruce. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers. So just before we wrap this up, David, if it's okay, I wanted to play Trump, and then we'll wrap it up here. Trump had some words to say outside of his court appearance yesterday. He's of course doing his hush money, as they call it. It's really funny how they call it the hush money. But I guess him and Stormy had some fun there, and he tried to get her to be quiet. Where is this video? Where is the video? The Trump hush money video. Anyway, he comes out, and while I'm looking for it, it was right up at the top here. And, he said it was absolutely ridiculous. Here's the thing. They're not letting him campaign, and they're not letting him they're not letting him campaign. He has to be there every day of the trial. And they're also not letting him go to his son's graduation, which I'm sure everyone likes to talk about that one, but it really is just that not really is just, but I mean, it's crazy. Here's a quick report on it. Let's see what they say.
I think it's pretty extraordinary in the very first jury pool, before you interview anybody, half of the jury pool already says they're so biased against President Trump that they can't serve on the jury. This is what we call voir dire, where the lawyers and the judges ask questions of the potential jurors to ferret out any bias. Before we even get to do that, half the jury pool already says they're fully biased. That's only going to feed into, I think, Donald Trump's claim that the public integrity of the courts and the prosecutors is to be questioned as being biased and unfair against them. I think it's pretty extraordinary.
All right. What is that one here? I just here it is.
After his first day of trial.
My son is graduating from high school, and it looks like the judge will not let me go to the graduation of my son, who's worked very, very hard. He's a great student, and he's very proud of the fact that he did so well. And was looking forward for years to have graduation with his mother and father there. And it looks like the judge isn't going to allow me to escape this scam. It's a scam trial. If you read all of the legal pundits, all of the legal scholars today, there's not one that I see that said this is a case that should be brought or tried. It's a scam. It's a political witch hunt. It continues and it continues forever. And we're not going to be given a fair trial. It's a very, very sad thing. In addition, as you know, next Thursday, we're before the United States Supreme Court on a very big hearing on immunity. And this is something that we've been waiting for a long time. And the judge, of course, is not going to allow us. He's a very conflicted judge. And he's not going to allow us to go to that. He won't allow me to leave here for a half a day, go to D.C. and go before the United States Supreme Court because he thinks he's superior, I guess, to the Supreme Court. We got a real problem with this judge. We have a real problem with a lot of things having to do with this trial, including DA, because you go right outside and people are being mugged and killed all day long, and he's sitting here all day with about 10 or 12 prosecutors over nothing. Over what people say shouldn't be a trial. So I just want to thank you very much. But that I can't go to my son's graduation, or that I can't go to the United States Supreme Court, that I'm not in Georgia or Florida or North Carolina campaigning like I should be. It's perfect for the radical left Democrats. That's exactly what they want. This is about election interference. That's all it's about. Thank you very much.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Go ahead. What are you going to say, Dave?
No, it's true. Election interference at its finest.
Yeah, or worst. All right, folks. We will see you very soon. Cheers.
Cheers. Stay tuned. Stay lucrative.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.